I'm your chairman for the evening. The name's Rondel, Phil Rondel. I'd like to welcome you all to First Tower School for this Hustings of St Helier number 3 and 4. Our candidates have drawn lots to speak this evening, and they'll each speak for approximately 5 minutes. At 4.5 minutes, I will ring the bell. After the speech is all completed, we will have questions from the floor. Each question should be answered in as short a time as possible. Maximum they will cut off at 2 minutes. The order of candidates for this evening. My apologies, John. No, I apologise to anybody who was stuck outside the front door. I was also caught out myself earlier on. The order of speeches this evening will be number one. First will be Richard Rondel, second Mike Higgins, third Laura Milner, fourth John Tuleskis, Tokalos, fifth Mary Osmond, sixth Mary Phillips, seventh Jackie Hilton, eighth Andrew Lewis, 9th, 10th Ted Vibert, and 10th Christian May. And I will ask for the first candidate to give us his speech, Richard Rondel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Rondel, and I have had the privilege of being your deputy for the past 3 years. I stand before you to ask for one of your votes in order to be re-elected on October the 15th. I am a 20-year-old Jerseyman with 3 boys, aged 20, 17 and 12. And for a career, I oversaw the development of my family's farm shop following a successful career in finance and agriculture. But enough about me. This hustings is about you, the electorate of St Helier 3 and 4. Time after time, you're faced with candidates standing before you, promising the earth and failing to deliver. Yet again, you have a large number to choose from, and I believe that it is important for you to make the right choice. I have had 3 years to represent you in the State Assembly, and I have always done what I thought was right, but more importantly, what I thought was in your interests as parishioners and islanders. Over the course of my term as your deputy, I put a great emphasis upon trying to enhance community relations in our parish. Having canvassed our district 3 years ago, it was clear to me that there were divides in our society that needed to be bridged. After being successfully elected, I sought to launch the Fête de St Helier street party to bring a more vibrant atmosphere into St Helier. I also joined the St Helier Polish Society, as well as joining the First Tower Residents Association, very ably chaired by Ted, the St Helier Accounts Committee, and then became governor at Rougebouillon School. A full list of the committees and panels that I sit on and play an active role in can be seen on my manifesto. But the reason why I am seeking re-election isn't because I'm standing on my track record. It's because I believe that I have unfinished business in representing you in the States. We have some major problems at the moment, and I know I am right in saying that you are underrepresented in the States. Our streets are not clean enough and our problems go unanswered. In particular, I believe that road safety is a key issue that continues to not be resolved adequately. If re-elected, I will continue to work tirelessly with TTS to address this. As well as this, we need to ensure that enough affordable housing is produced for our own youngsters. At present, the stock is too low and the prices are too high. I know from bitter experience of trying to find housing for my eldest son that it can appear daunting and sometimes unachievable. And I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones. Following my election, I brought many questions to the Housing Minister on this matter, and if re-elected, I will continue to do so. I will not stand by whilst potential homeowners are left wondering what to do and where to live. The reduction in the level of stamp duty exemptions for first-time buyers is concerning. It is clear that at a time when income revenues have decreased, that we must restrict those who are worse off and those that are the most vulnerable from feeling the pinch. But as well as this, the government needs to be slackening off where it is unwelcome, and I mean small businesses. If we want to kickstart our economy, the best way to do it is by supporting small business, not strangling it. I want to see more start-up businesses that are exempt from red tape, not beholden to it. Another important decision that has to be made during the next term of office is with regards to our new hospital. At present, there are rumours that the new hospital is going to be situated over 2 sites, but I believe we have to think long and hard before agreeing to this. Whilst it may be a more cost-effective way of delivering a new hospital, we need to remind ourselves what the purpose of the new hospital is, and this should be taken above all other economic considerations. If you want a deputy who gets things done, is approachable, but more importantly is friendly and willing to work with others, then please consider me, Deputy Richard Rondel, for one of your votes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. There.
Mike Higgins, please. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, can I just clarify with the bell? It's 1 minute before and 30 seconds, is it, or what?
It's 4.5 minute speech, then 30 seconds to cut off.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Higgins, and I've had the honour of being one of your 4 deputies for the last 6 years. For the benefit of those who don't know me, I'll begin by giving you a short biography. I'm married with 2 adult children, and I've lived in the district for 37 years. I was educated in England and Canada, and among my academic, professional and business qualifications, I have an honours degree in economics from the University of London and 2 postgraduate qualifications. I've also had wide experience in the aerospace and construction industries and have worked in the fields of education, youth work and financial regulation. Between 1977 and 1995, I was a lecturer in economics, law and banking at Highlands College, and between 1995 and 2007, I worked for the Jersey Financial Services Commission, where I was responsible for drafting laws that have led to the introduction of the Depositor Compensation Scheme, the General Insurance Mediation Law, and the Financial Services Ombudsman Scheme. I was also an officer in the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve, and I've organised the Jersey International Air Display for the last 18 years, and was responsible for turning it into an international event that is now known all over the world. It now brings more tourists to the island than any other tourism event and has contributed millions of pounds to the Jersey economy over the years, as well as helping raise money for British military charities. In 2013, it was recognised as the best European air display at the European Air Show Convention in Antwerp. Anyway, enough of that. As an individual, I've always believed in straight talking and telling it how it is. I also believe in honesty and integrity in politics, something which I believe is lacking in Jersey, and I detest political spin. How many of you, for example, know that the Reform Party is not the only political party in the States Assembly? The other party is a party with no name and fields candidates as independents, but who join the fold of the establishment after taking their seats. I can also tell you as a matter of pride that I've kept all my election promises, and that if I'm re-elected, I will continue to do so again. In the States Assembly, I played a very active role in trying to hold ministers, civil servants and public servants to account for their actions. I've done this as chairman of the Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel and by intensive questioning in the States Assembly. As a member of the Privileges and Procedures Committee, I played a major role in bringing forward the Freedom of Information Law that will come into force this January and should make our government more accountable and transparent than ever before. A great deal of my time, however, has been spent helping people with their problems with states, departments, agencies, and the legal system. Examples of the latter are listed in the election manifesto that has or should have been delivered to your homes. It also records some of the propositions that I've successfully brought before the states. What I have learned through my time in the States is that our political, economic, and legal systems are broken and are in need of major overhaul. The same is also true of some of our civil and public services. I also believe that we've been badly let down by successive councils of ministers and by a number of states and public bodies, who haven't been acting in the best interests of the island or the people of Jersey. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the details, but you'll find a great deal of it in this selection manifesto. So although it's long, please take the time to read it, as it tells you what's been going on behind the scenes. However, in summary, they have failed us by not diversifying our economy. Instead, they put all our eggs in one basket, the finance industry, which, because the 2008 recession was a finance-led recession, which incidentally are among the deepest and longest to recover from, we've had to endure 6 years of recession. There are also more storm clouds on the horizon, which could prolong it further. They've failed us by mismanaging the public finances through their tax policies. 010 has resulted in a loss of business taxation, so that personal taxes now represent 82% of all taxes, compared to 43% 5 years ago. Most companies now pay nothing. It also resulted in GST being introduced and rising to 5%. And now, because tax revenues have fallen, we now have another black hole of £95 million, which will probably result in GST rising by another 5% or leading to drastic reductions in public services. We desperately need a fair and balanced tax system. Why should companies pay no tax? And why should some 111Ks pay less tax than some marginal rate taxpayers? They've also failed to deliver on their policies to bring in affordable housing or to deliver jobs for our people. They've allowed the population of the island to skyrocket so that our roads, schools and hospitals are under strain. They have no effective means of reducing this growth and are actually talking about allowing another 20,000 coming into the island and building a hospital for 150,000. If you want a politician who's prepared to speak up and represent your interests, please vote for me on October 15th.
I'd like to call on Laura Milner, please.
Good evening. I'm Laura Millen, a Jersey woman born and bred and educated at Jersey College for Girls on a scholarship. I'm from working class parents and brought up in States housing. Other than 4 years spent in Liverpool, where I graduated from John Moores University with a degree in journalism, I've lived in Jersey all my life, the last 10 years being spent in St Helier. So why have I chosen to stand for a position in the States? I've always been quite an outspoken individual, probably stemming from having parents from Liverpool and Ireland. I took 2 A-levels at Victoria College, including politics, where I was the only girl in that class. Even at 16 years old, I held my own in the male-dominated environment. After graduation, I worked within a bank and then became an insurance underwriter. I had no previous experience in either role, but was very successful in both. For the past 5 years, having decided to move into a role more fitting to my skills, I've worked in recruitment. I developed a new portfolio of clients and employment candidates, becoming the highest fee earner in the Channel Islands and UK offices last year. I've been managing the Jersey division of this global company for the past 2 years. It is within this role that I've learned of various issues affecting a wide variety of individuals, from low to high earners, young to old. I've met clients concerned that they're unable to recruit the right skill set into their business, and I've also met people on 0-hour contracts whose recurring concerns are whether they're able to pay their rent that week. I've seen many individuals who are also in full-time employment but on our pitiful minimum wage and taking home little more than £250 per week. It's impossible with the high cost of living in Jersey for this sum to cover accommodation, food and bills, and so they have to resort to social security for a handout. If you are not already aware, someone on minimum wage will need to claim around £9,000 a year from income support and social security supplementation in order to survive. So you, as taxpayers, are subsidising employers paying low wages. Over these past 5 years, I've met many mothers desperate to get off income support, only to tell them that I will be unable to secure them a role with the salary they will require to cover childcare costs. If elected, I am intending to bring a proposition to introduce states-funded, means-tested childcare facilities. I've also met with mothers with children of school age needing reduced hours to fit in with school times, but have had to tell them that part-time positions are a rarity in Jersey, so again, I am unable to help. Their only option is to claim income support, and you would be surprised at how many people find this very distressing. We have a growing income support bill, but it's not providing these mothers with the support required to get back into the workplace. One of my intentions is to try to find ways to achieve this, one of which is to encourage employers to be more flexible and use this valuable resource. A financially independent working parent is a good role model for a child. An unemployed, demoralised parent is not. So why reform Jersey? Voter apathy in Jersey is encouraged by an overly complicated process. Many people are put off at the prospect of having to learn about individual candidates on a regular basis. How much simpler is it to just educate yourself on 2 or 3 manifestos and choose the party whose values are most closely aligned with your own? Policies are clear, will be adhered to, and will have more chance of getting through the chamber if there is a body of representatives who are committed to making them happen. Of the 49 states members, there are names and faces who we barely hear of or see, and those who we hear nothing from at all. Most definitely not in that category are Jeff Southern, Montfort Tadier and Sam Mesick. They are hard-working, visible and committed to social and economic justice. This is the team I want to be a part of to make Jersey a fairer and more equal place to live. The current makeup of the states is not representative of the population of Jersey. How can we expect little more than a 30% turnout when not only do we have so few young people in our government, but also so few women? How many states members can truly empathise with the 1,000 school leavers unable to get a job, or the 20 or 30-somethings unable to get on the property ladder due to spiralling rents and high property prices? A member of Reform Jersey has recently launched a proposition to investigate the prospect of rent control. We are heading towards a lost generation of young people, and our current government is doing little to help them. There is a proposal for property taxes, which will hurt those in rented accommodation most. We have new developments which are actively marketed to UK buyers, which keep the property market inflated and further out of the reach of first-time buyers. We are also facing more cuts to our health and education services. I want to help address these issues for you all. I, along with the current sitting members of Reform Jersey and the prospective new ones, promise that as a team we will focus on closing the ever-widening division between the haves and have-nots. With propositions already having been put forward for 6 months maternity pay, increases to the minimum wage, anti-discrimination and the encouragement of a living wage by the current members of Reform Jersey, the aims are clear. Just imagine what we can achieve with 8 of us standing up and representing the section of society that includes so many but are so grossly ignored. I put myself in front of you as someone who will work hard, learn this trade and have the confidence of you all who will be my employers. Thank you for listening.
I now call upon John Taliscus.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Tokolos. I'm Jersey born. I've got Greek background. I've been in hospitality for almost 30 years. I've also been a committee member for a Greek community in Jersey. I've also taken the role as an honorary officer for 3 years. Why I'm standing for deputy? I am interested and I love Jersey, and one of my main aim is to help tourism. I'd love to make tourism grow and be more, get people to come into Jersey. The other thing I want to do is I want to help in giving courage to the people who are unemployed. There's a lot of unemployed people who are on schemes, and some of those schemes, a lot of people do not feel as if it works. I'm one of those people who won that scheme. I was on that scheme for 8 weeks. It was the Back to Work scheme. I've been out of work for 4 years, so I know what it feels like for anybody who's been out of work for so long. I've had doubts about what it's like to be out of work for so long and not being able to I'm not being able to think that the job schemes will work. I just want to bring it out to the people and give them that courage, give them the confidence, and be able to believe that there will be a job at the end of this. The other thing I do want to say is I believe in civil marriage. I've been in a relationship for almost 5 years, and I've been in a civil partnership for almost 2 years now. I think it's about time that people realise that it's okay for 2 same-sex couples to get married. I just want to say, I just hope that everybody will understand what I'm trying to say here. And also, I'd like to say I hope you vote for me. Thank you very much.
Mary Osmond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for turning out on such a wild night. My name is Mary Osmond, and I'm Jersey born and educated. I spent my working life in St Helier. I started at Jersey Telecoms and swiftly moved on to the Midland Bank and continued in the finance industry. But I've always done some form of part-time voluntary work, including the Samaritans, Mustard Seed, Meals on Wheels, and Age Concern. I was also a trustee of the Roseneath Shelter for the Homeless for 20 years, until its closure in 2011. I sat on the committee for the Jersey Christmas Appeal for 4 years and became the first female chairman in 2004. Since retiring, I've dedicated my free time to more voluntary work. I'm a community volunteer for the parish and have been both a constable's officer and a vantenier in St Helier's Honorary Police. It has been my work with all these organisations that has energised me to stand for election in the area that I live. My roles have given me a good grounding to listen to people's needs and to act upon them. I'm not interested in being a states member for the sake of it or to have a ministerial title. I'm more interested in people than I am in playing political games. Talking to parishioners, one of the main concerns is speeding. Having been an honorary officer for over 6 years and a member of the Road Safety Panel, I feel that I have a little more knowledge on the subject than most. Those of you who live on or near Victoria Avenue and First Tower must be aware of speeding vehicles on a daily basis. But did you know that the smiley faces have recorded speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour? Yeah, that's 100 miles an hour, and not always in the early hours. This is endangering lives, and sadly some drivers are fatally injured. But there is technology available to enforce speed limits and other motoring offences, such as red light infractions. If elected, I would work with the constable and my fellow deputies, the police and the states members to bring legislation to enable this modern technology to be used. Parking in this area, I am told, is a problem for some. But town parking is a nightmare, and it's not surprising that the town is being deserted and people are using online shopping, when if you do manage to find a parking place when you come to town, you're limited to 1 hour. It's no use trying to revitalise the town with various schemes like Thursday night shopping when it's so unfriendly to park. This also needs a total overhaul and consultation with the various departments. Going on to housing, I am appalled at the condition that some parishioners live in. We need tighter controls on rented properties to protect tenants. I strongly believe that everyone deserves to live in reasonable accommodation and not be afraid to speak out for fear of eviction. We also need to look at the derelict buildings around St Helier. They're an eyesore and a potential health hazard. And with such a shortage of affordable housing, how can this be allowed to continue? Moving on to island-wide issues, the ridiculous situation that we're all taxed on our heating, lighting and food bills has to stop. If elected, I would definitely be supporting removal of GST off these vital items. Why should families and the elderly have to choose between heat and eat? I am aware that this issue has again been debated recently and again been lost, but it will continue to dominate the next House. Immigration is a major issue with everyone who cares about this island. It is overcrowded and putting a huge strain on schools, the hospital and housing. Enough is enough. We need a proper immigration policy now. States' extravagant spending must be curbed. There's bad management of the resources available and too much waste. Why should our future generations be disadvantaged by reductions in this year's education budget and for the next fiscal year? And the automatic right of the constables to have a seat in the states must be removed. If they want to be states members, they should stand like everyone else and be elected in a true democratic way. I would like to see a community that's catered for on all levels, regardless of age, nationality or income. The recently adopted discrimination law should help those who feel marginalised, but I'd like to see our island embrace our various cultures and strive to work together for the good of all. I've spoken long enough. Those of you who know me know I can talk for ages, but I'm here to listen. I can say that I will work for you and apply the same dedication in this parish as I have for many years in my various voluntary roles. Please consider giving me, Mary Osmond, one of your votes next Wednesday. Thank you very much.
I now call upon Mary Ayling-Phillips.
Hello, my name is Mary Ayling-Phillip. I've been inspired by the quote from Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I want the composition of the states to be more representative of the hard-working, ordinary people of District 3 and 4. When the states decided not to implement the decision of the referendum on electoral reform, they lost credibility. I will be accountable and represent new thinking. In the district, for the district, I'm a local resident having lived for 38 years in Westmount Road. I'm approachable and knowledgeable about the area. I've taken issues to the parish assembly that affect the quality of life for residents and was involved in the creation of the Cheapside residents parking zone. Recently, I have requested that the parish improve the signage. You will be able to contact me easily by telephone, email, face-to-face. I will be an advocate for you. I'm 54, which is a good age to seek election. I have relevant work experience in youth work and lecturing. I'm well educated. I have a BA and an MA degree. I'm a good team player, organised, can work to deadlines, and I'm used to reading long policy documents. Having worked in the public sector, I will push for more joined-up, collaborative working between states' departments. I am a mum of a teenage daughter who recently completed her primary education at First Tower School. I understand the challenges that working parents face and will campaign for more flexible working conditions and affordable childcare. I will work closely with the Social Security Department to ensure that initiatives such as the Back to Work scheme are effective. Having a teenager and working with teenagers, I know more needs to be done to promote mental well-being in schools and through the youth service. Social media has transformed teenage social life, sometimes with unintended consequences. I would work hard to establish a student loan scheme for Jersey students who wish to study at college or university. Local people need to be better prepared for the job market. Companies who apply for licenses to bring in workers must be made to train or give apprenticeships to locally qualified people. Promote local talent rather than import outside consultants. Having been a carer for my elderly mum, I can appreciate the challenges the growing elderly population face. More support must be provided to enable people to stay in their own homes longer. The proposed redevelopment of the hospital must be reviewed. I support the expansion and refurbishment on the current site. Overdale is very hard to get to, and it will increase traffic congestion in Westmount and the Tower Road area. Diversifying the economy is essential, and using the internet to create more business opportunities is a way forward, both for existing local businesses to develop trade online and with the creation of industries such as data storage in Jersey. Businesses need more help by reducing red tape and the implementation of eGov initiative, moving more state services online. More tourism with Europe should be developed, building on the work of the language schools. Getting more direct flights from European cities is essential. I will defend all the parks and green spaces in this district. Constables should be removed from the states. Based on my education, employment and long-term residency of the district, I will be able to contribute fully and represent this district passionately in the States Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Jackie Hilton.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to attend this evening. My name is Jackie Hilton. I have 3 young adult children who still live at home, and I have lived in your district for 32 years. I've had the honour and privilege of representing you for the past 12 years. I was first elected to the role of Deputy for St Helier No. 3 and 4 districts in 2002, I was re-elected in 2005, 2008 and 2011, topping the poll on all 4 occasions, a fact of which I am very proud. I was a centennial in the parish of St Helier between 1999 and 2002, and I'm Vice Chairman of the St Helier Youth Committee and a member of the St Helier Accounts Committee. Recently, I have been the Acting Chair of the Health, Social Security and Housing Scrutiny Panel. Previously, I have held the post of Vice President of the Environment and Public Services Committee, Assistant Minister, Housing and at Home Affairs. I have an exemplary record at parish assemblies, which is very important to me, challenging on your behalf the inappropriate granting of liquor licences and generally safeguarding your right to a quiet and peaceful life in St Helier. Representing my constituents, whether in a personal capacity, supporting them with planning, housing or social security issues, to name but a few, or as a group, is a major part of the work I do on your behalf. I believe a district deputy is first and foremost a conduit between the people and the government, and it is vitally important those people you vote in are there to represent your best interests and not their own. I believe my record speaks for itself, whether this involves campaigning with residents to permanently close unruly licensed establishments, safeguarding our greenfield sites at Le Poucoulet and other locations, or lobbying for traffic calming measures in La Grande Route de la Montalabé. You can rely on me to see the issues through to the end. Indeed, the transfer of Le Clovets to the parish did take a long time, but we got there in the end, unlike the residents of Maufont, who are still waiting 30 years later for theirs to happen. Times have been getting tougher in Jersey and probably about to get a whole lot tougher. The health budget is coming under increasing pressure. As new drugs are developed, people have a greater expectation of the treatments they are offered, and coupled with an ageing population, tough decisions will have to be made to how we are going to fund the health service. I know from talking to people on the doorsteps, in supermarkets and on the street, people are concerned as to how this is going to affect them, especially the elderly on low fixed incomes. We must, as a government, be sure your taxes are targeted effectively and savings are achieved without impacting on those frontline services I believe the public want. It would be dishonest of me to stand before you this evening and promise I will not support tax increases. But the reality is, if we are not to have any cuts in frontline services, taxes will have to be increased somewhere. What I promise you is this: I will do all I can to make sure that when this happens, any increases are applied fairly and equitably across all income groups. If this means the ceiling on social security contributions are raised, and in doing so affecting those on higher incomes, then so be it. I do not agree that older people or those on low income should be bearing the brunt of additional taxes, whilst those earning six-figure sums are sitting pretty. It goes without saying, I have consistently voted against GST on food. I will promise you now, I will not support an increase in GST on food. The states have achieved a lot in the past 3 years, but we must do better. Whether it is safeguarding employment opportunities for local people, providing more affordable and social housing, or being more robust about how we apply immigration caps through work permits or time-limited contracts, in order we import the skills we need to deliver the services we want without sucking in more minimum wage earners who then invariably join our ever-increasing housing waiting list. I want to finish by touching on a report I co-authored with a colleague of mine on the scrutiny panel into the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. I was being contacted and stopped in the street by a number of parents who had concerns about the service they were receiving or not receiving in some cases. This resulted in my colleague and I undertaking a review, the results of which shocked parents and professionals alike. It is of deep concern to me the number of young people who have committed suicide in the past 18 months, every one a tragedy, not only for their parents and families, but to us all. If re-elected, it is my intention to ensure the review of the Children's Service promised by the Minister on the back of our report is carried out, and those families with children who need help will, in the future, be able to rely on the very service which is supposed to be there to help them. I could carry on talking about my concerns over the dual site option for the new hospital, but you might not be able to shut me up. So I shall finish by asking you to please consider me for one of your 4 votes. Thank you for listening.
I now call upon Andrew Lewis.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out in such goodly numbers tonight. I take it the Great British Bake Off didn't win. This is going to be a whole lot more exciting. But thank you for coming. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a bit more about myself and what I propose to do if elected in District 3-4. I'm a 50-year-old Jerseyman, born here, married to my wife Kate, who's in the audience, and great support to me. We have 2 teenage sons. I was educated at De La Salle College and continued my education in the UK, graduating in business studies and tourism. As a ratepayer in St Helier for over 20 years, I believe I can offer commitment to the parish along with sound business acumen. My previous experience in the States has given me an invaluable insight into the workings of government, and if elected, this would stand me in good stead to have an immediate impact. Like many of you, I was appalled that the States failed to implement the results of the referendum. I'm sure this made you wonder, why bother voting again? However, I would like to appeal to you that voting is still the only way to effect change. If elected, I will bring a proposition to the States to either put to the vote again the result of the referendum or propose a wider range of options if this is what you demand. Any future commission must be independent, unlike the last process. My prime objective is to serve the districts 3 and 4 as an effective and accessible constituent politician. If elected, my priority to St Helier would be to work with the Town Hall and enforcement agencies to maintain and enhance the district's public areas and keep them clean and safe. I'd like to develop further the Safer St Helier initiative with the Honorary Police, the States Police and other community-based agencies. It would be my aim to establish a St Helier Community Trust to provide facilities and services for the parish that might not otherwise be financed by the parish. St Helier is the parish that is most affected by traffic congestion. Given the challenge to find more commuter parking options, the residential parking scheme has stood out as the only attempt to ensure that residents of the district can leave their car near their home. I know from speaking to many of you that the scheme is not perfect, but with some work it can be developed. I would help support any move that push that process along. I also believe that the states of Jersey should be paying St Helier rates on their buildings and land. This will focus their attention to the value of these assets and perhaps consider disposing of some of them and reinvesting the funds back into the community. St Helier is not responsible for providing all the new housing stock, but at times it seems that way. We need to be more creative in finding solutions to this issue and encourage other parishes to share the burden. If elected, I would also represent you on the wider issues facing the states, including those that I consider to be particularly important, such as extra funding towards GP visits for children and an enhanced dental scheme to extend beyond primary school age and for those on low incomes, a viable policy for the creation of affordable starter homes, and a right to buy scheme for states' housing tenants. I believe strongly in the adage, young people are our future. I've helped deliver 2 major youth projects through a charitable trust that I chair, and I've just completed 3 years as a member of the Youth Court panel sitting in the Magistrates' Court. Enhanced apprenticeship schemes and more emphasis on preparing young people for work would be high on my agenda. I'd also like to see an increase in the range of degree courses available locally. Education, in particular higher education, must be accessible to everyone, regardless of household income. I've been appalled to be told whilst out canvassing that many families can no longer afford to send their children to university. If elected, I would tackle head-on any inefficiency in the public sector and seek the introduction of policies that encourage economic diversity, such as intellectual property, IT, the digital and e-commerce sectors. That said, we need to consider the balance between supporting local traders and the threat of competition from online shopping. This is critical for St Helier traders. Speaking to many of you recently, I understand your concerns about immigration. You feel that the current policy doesn't go far enough. Instead, I believe a points system should be considered, which would discriminate against people with criminal records and seek to attract the people with the skills we really need. I see a scheme not dissimilar to Australia, where we can be much more selective. We need new blood in the States, and I sincerely hope the voters will put their faith in me. I believe that I have the energy, common sense, and experience that parishioners of District 3 and 4 would be well served. It is great to see so many of you here tonight, and I would urge you to encourage your friends, your neighbours, to vote on the election on Wednesday. Thank you for listening.
And I call on Ted Vibert.
Mr. Chairman, before I start, can I just explain why I've moved away from the group to here? It's not because I don't like them, right? It's because I've had an eye operation and I still aren't seeing quite properly, so I need to be a little bit higher. So if you'll excuse me for that. Now, when my good friend Andrew Green decided to go for a senatorial seat, this created a vacancy in this district. And I hope I can persuade you to let me take his place and become one of your deputies. I've lived here for a number of years, and I've been very active within this community in that time. I've been chairman of the First Hour Community Association for several years now, and we've had some major successes in making First Hour a more pleasant place to live. For example, in conjunction with the Jersey Probation Service, we've transformed the area around the Martello Tower into what a letter writer to the JEP described as a floral fantasy. And those of you who live in here, I'm sure, know what I'm talking about. We also run the island's largest youth club, the Hangout, which is in the old Sunworks building. We've converted it and equipped it with all the latest gizmos to appeal to young people. But at this meeting tonight, I want to send out a very clear message about where I stand on the major current issues facing Jersey. Firstly, I want to make it crystal clear that I don't want you to vote for me if you approve of GST on food, children's books, clothes, baby needs and heating oil, or if you want to keep constables in the States, or if you're happy that £24 million was wasted on a computer system that doesn't work and has been scrapped, or that £200,000 was given to make a film that will never be made. That last year, for the first time in Jersey's history, we spent more than we earned and faced a black hole of £30 to £50 million thanks to the incompetence of our Treasury Minister. Also, please don't vote for me if you think that our taxation system is fair when a person earning £6,000 a week pays the same rate of tax as a person earning £600 a week. Or that 50% of our people are living a hand-to-mouth existence and have no cash reserves. These disgraceful things are happening in the island that I love and under the very noses of our government, yet they continue to pour £9 million a year into helping unfortunate people in other countries. Now look, I'm sorry that I've got an old-fashioned view, which is that charity begins at home, and I believe we should be looking after our own hard-working and less fortunate members of our community, and they should come first. I'm proposing that overseas aid project be scrapped until we're satisfied that our own people are being properly cared for. So please don't vote for me if you're happy that our population is forecast to hit 125,000 in 7 years, thanks to insipid, inadequate and totally useless immigration laws. Please don't vote for me if you think everything is okay within our community. Now let me say I'm not just unhappy about how life in Jersey is for people on low and middle income families, I'm also ashamed to be a Jerseyman and to be part of it. I simply can't enjoy life without wanting to do something about it. So what can I do to change the picture? Well, as a former senator and deputy, I know how the state operates. If you elect me, I can hit the ground running. And on the very first day of the very first meeting of the very first new state, I can bring a proposition to end the most iniquitous, disgraceful, unfair section of tax that was ever dreamed up, and that's putting GST on food and the other items that I've mentioned. It's almost unbelievable that a government can do it. I'll also put a plan forward that will raise the money to replace the revenue that's going to be lost. And I've detailed those measures in the letter that I've distributed, which I hope you'll read. In short, this plan calls on thousands of highly paid individuals simply to pay more tax. It's as simple as that. And yet, it's the elephant in the room as far as this election is concerned, and nobody is mentioning it at all. And if we do that, and we make it a fairer and more just society, Jersey can become a more decent place for ordinary people in which to live. I make no apology for saying that Jersey is governed by the rich, for the rich. And I'm going to fight strenuously to maintain the opposition to that privileged position. Make no mistake, I've got no fear of them, and I've proved that in the past when I was in the States. I've got nothing to lose by tackling them head on, and I pledge to you, if you elect me, I'll give it my best shot. I'd appreciate, if you want to know more, that you would go to my website, which is tedvibert.co.uk. vote.je.com. I hope on election day you'll give me your vote.
I now call upon Christian May.
Last but not least, I hope. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Christian May, and at age 30, the youngest candidate here this evening. I'm proud to be a resident of St Helier 3 and 4. I live on Lewis Street in Cheapside, where 5 generations of my family, including my parents, have lived and worked. I was educated at De La Salle College before attending the University of Nottingham, where I read law, and was called to the English bar in 2007. I returned to Jersey to work for the law firm Baker and Partners, primarily doing prosecution work to counter drugs offences and fraud. And recently I've moved into the role of business development manager. In my spare time, I'm very proud to be a trustee of the Jersey Heritage Trust, protecting some of Jersey's most vulnerable but valuable sites. I've got 3 particular district issues that concern me: safety, investment, and the community. People have asked me, why is safety at the top of your manifesto? Surely St Helier 3 and 4 isn't that unsafe. I've heard of 2 incidences this week that particularly concerned me. The first was a family friend in their 60s being attacked early one morning in Elizabeth Place. The 3 people who attacked him were arrested shortly thereafter and found to be in possession of drugs. The other offence I'm sure you've seen of was the attack this week in Parade Gardens, where someone ended up with facial injuries. These events are going on. I go around the parks with my dog each day and I see syringes and bottles, unfortunately, in those parks. I see and hear violence on the streets of St Helier, and I see and hear speeding offences. There was a death not 500 yards from here because of people driving recklessly. I don't question the dedication of our police and honorary police, but I want to work with them and the Shelter Trust and other charitable bodies to improve and build a safer, better district. On investment, we've got 2 of the biggest projects happening in our district. The hospital, which I want to see on one site, and just up the road from you, the sewage treatment works. Now, these have got to work for the island, but they shouldn't impact negatively on your day-to-day lives. I also think that we need equal investment on our infrastructure, on the sea wall, on drainage, on the parks, making it a better place for us to live. Looking at the community, what Ted has said is very true, and you should be so proud of the work done in First Tower. You're an example to the rest of the district. And I want to take that example and use it in Cheapside, in Gloucester Street, and bring the community together there, who at the moment are disenfranchised and have no similar group. Island-wide, I've also got 3 issues: the economy, education, and innovation. On the economy, I can't deny we're in difficult financial times, but increasing taxation is not the answer. Squeezing lower middle-income families who are already suffering isn't the answer. What I want to see is a reduction in public spending, not on critical services like education or on healthcare, but I want to look at administration and management and make sure that lean is applied across the states to cut spending. On education, we pride ourselves here as being a leading offshore finance centre. Why don't we pride ourselves on being a leading education centre? Why don't our children get the best? Because that's the promise all parents give them. My children will get better than I got. And I would love to hear people going out with conservation training from Durrell and finance training and other training, and people saying they were educated in Jersey and that's why they're the best. On innovation, I believe that a diverse economy is a strong economy, and we can't just be reliant on the finance sector. But we need to look at other sectors as well. We've got the potential to develop Jersey through digital economy, through training young people in cryptocurrency and design and manufacture. But also we've got a fantastic agriculture industry over here. Look how China want Jersey's milk. And that's another way that we can develop our strong image. We're rich in potential. Ultimately, you're going to ask, what can I offer you? And what it is balance. It's a balance between someone who's young going into the States but has experience of business and the law. Someone who has a balance between a vision for a stronger, better island, but also local knowledge and local issues. And I hope that you will consider using one of your votes for me on October the 15th. Thank you very much.
That completes the speeches. We will now take questions from the floor. Seeing the lady in the wheelchair, first of all.
But I would actually like to ask the majority, there are proposals to locate the hospital facilities on 2 sites. Do the candidates agree with this, and could they please give their reasons, i.e. one way or the other? Thank you.
I will start with number 10, and we'll work the table the other way.
Back onto my feet again. Thank you very much for your question. As I said in my speech briefly, I support a one-site hospital. Now, some people may think that particularly strange because I live on Lewis Street and I would be minutes away from what will be a development site for a long time. But I believe that when it comes to making sure that money is spent wisely, that is the appropriate option. Why would we build on 2 sites when one would be adequate? I believe in continuity of services. How can we have people travelling between one site and another to ensure that they are getting the best healthcare? It won't work. Would we have 2 pathology labs if someone needed urgent testing? No. And it's not just the continuity of services. Imagine the impact on people living on Westmount, in the area where I live at Cheapside, but also knock-on effects of traffic up Queen's Road and up to the residential areas up there. It seems to me that this really does need to go back to the States and to be looked at carefully. I know residents in Kensington Place and Lewis Street support a one-site hospital, and I think it is the best option for the district and for the island.
Yes, the best answer that I can give is to, in fact, read this particular scrutiny document which Jackie Hilton chaired, and which is a brilliant analysis of all the faults that have been placed in this whole dilemma of where the hospital ought to be, and raises enormous doubts about the viability of it. And until all those questions are answered by the Council of Ministers, on its face it seems ridiculous to have 2 places to put a hospital. So I would be guided by this particular report, because they had experts who went into it, and it's a thorough report, and looking at what the Council of Ministers would be doing. And if it comes out that it is the wrong place to put it, regardless of the opposition that will be, I will make sure that I vote that it doesn't happen.
I'm not sure how many of you are aware of some of the background to this and the reason why it could be on 2 sites. The reason is that the site simply isn't big enough. They are trying to acquire 2 of the hotels in Kensington Place, but even with that, it's still not big enough. And you may say, why? Well, the reason for it is that modern standards in health are such that people want single rooms, they don't want wards. Where we currently have wards that the room around the beds are too small. So if you put 50 more beds in that hospital, which is the plan, it simply isn't big enough. So the idea is, according to the reports and the consultants I've spoken to, is that some of the services would be provided at another site, potentially Overdale, for example. But it would only be outpatients, for example, the diabetes unit. You wouldn't have a pathology unit in one and another one in the other. So this consultation document that's being put together at the moment is a vital piece of information so that as States members, we, if we get elected, can make an informed decision. And that's what I would be about as being a States member, is take the information and make an informed decision. At the moment, the budget for the hospital is 297 million. Now that works in doing it on these 2 sites. If you create another site, even bigger, it costs even more. And one of the sites that's been talking about is the waterfront. The waterfront is a prime development site that is worth many millions of pounds. And you could get it all on there, but do we really want a hospital on our waterfront? But that's a question for the consultation document, and that's the sort of thing that we need as States members, if we get elected, to review, consult with, and find the best solution, the best way forward. Thank you.
The Council of Ministers originally looked at about 27 sites. They whittled it down to 10 and then to a final 3. The 3 preferred sites were some sites on the waterfront, the General Hospital site and Warwick Farm. Warwick Farm was dismissed because it's in the green zone and it would have been too problematic putting a very large building in the green zone on the top of the island where it could be seen from miles around. The reason I don't agree with the dual site option is partly financial. As Andrew said, the budget's £297 million. That's a shade under £300 million. And so I asked myself, what do we achieve for £300 million? Well, all you achieve is actually 44% new build across the 2 sites. That's 44% for £300 million. And my argument would be that at some point in the next 20 or 30 years, you're going to have to go back and revisit the 30% that's refurbished and the 26% across the 2 sites that remains the same. And to me, £300 million for 44% new build is just not good enough. I actually favour, and the experts who the Council of Ministers brought in actually said the best option is always a clean site where you build the hospital. The running of the existing hospital is not affected by it. One of the problems of building alongside the existing hospital is the impact of noise on patients and staff. And the expert did say to the Council of Ministers, do not underestimate what you are considering taking on. So my preferred option is actually on the waterfront. The other thing I wanted to mention is the strategic fund is going to be used to fund the hospital. The original plan was £30 million from investment returns over 10 years. Now, the strategic fund actually returned £91 million on its investment returns last year, and I believe it's going to return somewhere in the region of 60 to 70 this year. I think the Council of Ministers need to go back and look at the figures and give the Jersey people a hospital they are entitled to, in my opinion.
I think that the scrutiny report that Jackie compiled is a useful document. I think that it should be kept on one site in the current location, expanding into Kensington Place. As I've been canvassing, one of the things that many people have said to me is they do not want the outpatients moving to Overdale. Difficult to get to, more congestion in the area, and if Overdale could be maybe just refurbished to provide more convalescing to stop the bed blocking that often goes on in the main hospital, that would be a suitable place for that. And I think that by keeping the hospital in one site where it is, you'd have less duplication of services, and the transport links are already in place to get to that part of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey, for your question. I can remember way back when I was a girl, we had a little hospital, and then they had phase 1, phase 2. And then suddenly we've got blocks of flats built by Dan Dara on a site that would have been perfect to expand the hospital all across Gloucester Street, right the way through, get rid of Peter Corill House as a learning centre, move that to Overdale, they've all got cars, and use that site. But the States of Jersey gave the land, or negotiated the land, for Dan Dara to use. And that's where we're wrong. That was meant to be phase 3, and it never happened. I'm in favour of one site.
I'm in favour of one site too. I believe that expansion to the one site will be much better. Thank you.
I was in favour of one site because of moving the outpatients department up to Overdale. There'd be the issue of traffic, there'd be the impact on the residents, and there would obviously be the impact on the patients. However, I had quite a long chat with a friend of mine who's a nurse yesterday, and what she told me was that many of the outpatient services actually exist already up at Overdale. Many of the nurses split their time between the hospitals. She said it wouldn't actually be that much of an upheaval to move the remainder of the services up to Overdale, and she personally thinks a reasonably good transport service up there, better bus links, whatnot, wouldn't cause that much of a problem. Now I'm quite split, as I've heard from a nurse, that she doesn't see it as an issue, and apparently that's very much the opinion of a lot of the hospital staff. that's the whole point of a consultation paper, is that we'll have all the evidence and then we'll make a decision, and hopefully the right one.
It's very difficult at the end of a line to come up with something different. I happen to agree with what Jackie Hilton has said. In fact, I think her report was an excellent one. I have been in favour of one site. I don't believe we should be splitting them. I believe that all the operating theatres, all the investigation laboratories and everything else should be on the one site. But I do also believe it should be a fresh site. I think the other one, for, again, the reasons that Jackie has mentioned, is totally inadequate. I think we have to find a new site, and we can actually build that hospital while the other one is continuing with its functions. So therefore, when it's finished, then the services can move across to the new one. The only thing that I agree with one of the other speakers, a note I made, was the fact that there is the issue of bed blocking. Very often people have been in hospital and there isn't carers at home for them, so they can go home and they stay in the hospital blocking beds. I can agree that we could have on another site for people who aren't acute cases, where they can convalesce in a peaceful surrounding and free up more beds and more facilities at the main hospital. But one site, quite definitely. Thank you.
You said you were at the end, but I'm even further than you, Mike. No, I've always said a one-site option would be the better option. What I would say is Overdale is a massive site. It's got some very old buildings, has not been invested for decades, and it is scandalous it's been left to rack and ruin. There could be opportunity there to put a mental health services or unit up there, which is what I would like to see. As far as the main hospital, I don't think the existing premises should be revamped. I think an absolutely brand new site built for purpose is the right one. And I welcome Deputy Andrew Green's comments yesterday, I think it was, that should he be successful on becoming Health Minister, he will have a 100-day review and come back within 100 days, having had a full consultation, to look for that option. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now take a question from this side of the floor. The gentleman with the blue T-shirt, or this gentleman in the second row, please. Yes, please.
My question is, why should I pay more locally than I could do on the internet?
Could you repeat that, please, sir?
When I'm buying something, why should I pay more locally than I would have to on the internet?
Thank you. And the question this time, we'll start with Mary Osmond, and we'll work down the hall that way and come back this way.
I've only got a little bit of evidence about buying online, and yes, it is cheaper, but I just enjoy going around the shops and looking at things, and if I see something I want to buy, I buy it. If I absolutely can't find it, or it's £50 more than what I could get it on the online, I would do it. But I'm not one of these people that lives on Amazon. If I want a book, I go to a bookshop. If I want a dress, I go to Grish's or Marks and Spencer's. I don't shop online because I don't think it's good for the economy. And well, you can choose to do whatever you like because you're a free agent, but you've got to realise that people in the shops will be dearer because you're not supporting them. And the more people who shop online, they're buying in bulk. They're buying millions of pounds worth of stuff. Amazon own half the world, but they don't pay much tax. We should be supporting our local shop. We should be supporting our town and our businesses. Well, you call them greedy merchants, but look at the overheads. You're already saying they don't pay tax. But I'm not going to get into an argument with you. My view is that we should be supporting our local town and our shopkeepers. That's my personal opinion. Thank you.
I agree that the internet is a good thing to buy things on, but I think it's bad for the industry over here. I mean, you've got so many shops over here, and I feel as if all the people who've got shops here are losing out on their products. I mean, if they do try.
Can we let the gentleman answer the question, please?
Well, if they do try, but they're always competing with the internet. So It's something that it's bad. I mean, we want people to be able to buy things from our shops over here. Why should we go to the internet? I can't answer anymore. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
And the answer to your question is you don't have to shop locally. It's as simple as that. People shop. Hold on 2 seconds, please. You know, in an ideal world, we would all shop locally. You know, we'd have great relations with kind of all our, you know, the people who own the businesses and you know whatnot. The reason why people shop online is because it's cheaper. It's, you know, it's as simple as that. The cost of living in Jersey is so high. If we can deal with bringing down the cost of living, then we can all, you know, go into town and spend more money in the shops. Of course, it's better to keep money in the economy in Jersey. You know, it goes round and round. But, you know, while we still have a pathetic minimum wage where people can't afford to live, we have 0-hour contracts that are completely abused, where someone will take home £350 1 week, £120 the following week. They don't have any spare cash to float around. They have to search for bargains on the internet, and that's quite simply the way it is.
In answer to your question, I have no sympathy with the retailers, and the reason why is they have ripped us off for far too long. Now, I brought a proposition to the States in my first term to penalise all retailers that charged UK VAT on their goods or charged excessive freight charges. Now, I lost that proposition in the States because of the vested interests within the States. We have a situation where both island shops and UK-owned shops are charging that 20%. They're taking it as an extra margin. And in addition to that, they're charging us far more than we should pay for freight charges. A container doesn't cost that much to put things in, and I'm sure they could be consolidated loads to bring them in as well. So, as I say, I have no sympathy for them, and I have no sympathy also for the landlords that are charging high rents to those shops. If we are basically boycotting them, some of them are going to go out of business, and so are some of the landlords, because they won't be getting their returns. And all I can say is they brought it upon themselves. It's time they treated the public fairly. And as I say, what I was trying to do in the proposition was to find a mechanism to sort of penalise them, and I was going to tax them because they don't pay any taxes in the island at the present time. Thank you.
What can I add to that? I've been looking a little bit this week, actually, on certain items, things like toilet rolls and granulated sugar. And I've looked on Amazon and other items like that, and I've actually found cheaper locally this week. Now, I've been around Iceland, I've been around Waitrose. In fact, I found Waitrose was cheaper than Iceland. But that isn't always the norm. So I think one of the main problems has been the rents that shopkeepers have actually had to pay. And I think that is starting to change slowly, but not quick enough. The costs for a business are a lot more over here, and that has been the issue. As soon as rents start coming down, then I believe we will see more competition. And the internet is there to be competitive, otherwise the local shops will not survive.
But what about companies who own their property and still own charges?
Well, that's a different matter. That shouldn't happen. That's greed. Thank you.
Unfortunately, in some ways, we are at the mercy of big companies like Amazon. They can buy in bulk, they can offer discounts that certain Jersey businesses just can't offer. But we are also at the mercy of certain larger companies over here who don't offer discounts. You'll often probably find better pricing in some of the smaller stores, and there are many local providers within the district who I know try and be as competitive as they can. But again, they're often beaten down by bigger companies locally or bigger companies nationally. Why should you spend more locally? Again, you do have the choice to buy online, but I would hope that you would try and want to support Jersey industry. I can completely understand why you wouldn't want to. Everyone deserves to get the best deal. We should be able to get that in Jersey equally that we should be able to get online.
Well, I agree entirely with what Mike had to say, but there are some companies in Jersey who don't add 20% to it, who are doing everything fair and square, who still can't compete. And the reason they can't compete is there's two different business models at work. Companies like Amazon, and they're only one company in the world, have huge warehouses, they buy huge amounts of stock, they have no front staff. On the other hand, you have the shops in Jersey, as they are in all the other countries like in England, who have rent to pay, staff to pay, stock to pay for, and they simply cannot afford to beat the prices that are on the internet. And although, sir, you say they should put their prices down, that would be the quickest way for them to go broke, then you can imagine they simply can't afford to do it. I'm not talking about the companies who have screwed Jersey people by keeping a 20% tax on their goods. I'm talking about ordinary, proper, good businesses who've done the right thing, and they are struggling. And I don't think there's much of an answer to it.
I'm afraid local retailers are going to have to wake up. There's a big world out there that we can all shop from, and you've just said it, the internet. And a lot are. A lot of shops now have websites where you can click and you can collect. It's all about service. The reason why I buy locally is because of service, not necessarily because of price. I may pay more for it, but it's service. And some of the service is getting better because of what you're saying, because people now have a choice. They can go online and they can shop. They can get better prices and often better service. But when you come to return that item, some people do it very well, but a lot of internet companies don't. So you go to a shop and you expect good service, and some of those retailers are now providing good service because they have to. They've been shaken up by the internet. Been a bit slow to react, but they've been shaken up by it, and a lot are doing it very, very well now. Regarding the UK multinationals that have businesses here, yes, they don't pay tax, but they do pay tax in their own country, but they do employ a lot of local people that are paying tax, social security, and that money is going into the economy in that way. So it's not entirely true that they're paying nothing and contributing nothing. And we're quite fortunate to have a number of major multinational companies here that, to be honest, in lots of small places they wouldn't even exist. And it's because we have a certain buying power here and we do pay the money, and that's why they're here. So we have that choice of retail shops here. You go to Guernsey and there's hardly any retail choice at all. Now, if our size gets any smaller, then there won't be the choice on the high street anymore. We're lucky to have the shops we have. We should welcome the traders we've got, and we should shop whenever we can locally, support local businesses, but they need to wake up too. The internet's here and it's not going away.
Your question was, why should I pay more locally than on the internet? With the best will in the world, you're always going to pay less on the internet for the very reasons that have been outlined this evening by Ted and various other speakers, that local businesses do have overheads and they simply cannot compete on a like-for-like basis with some of the big retailers in the UK. I think it's absolutely wrong that companies like Marks and Spencer's do charge don't take the VAT off their clothes and other goods in their stores. But the only way that you good people can change things is by actually voting with your feet. And if you don't shop in places like Marks and Spencer's, then maybe they might consider actually lowering their prices. Personally speaking, I don't tend to shop on the internet. I do support our local economy, and I think that's really, really important. Small retailers in St Helier need as much help as they possibly can get. They might be private businesses, but they do need our support, as far as I'm concerned. The great thing is, we live in a democracy, and you are completely free to either shop on the internet or shop in town, and long may that stay that way. Thank you.
I think that the local retailers really need to market the fact that they're adding an extra service. For example, you can try on clothes. Your election materials that we've just had, you can go and check out. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to use services on the internet to print election materials, but if you use a local retailer, you can go and check things, you can get things done. So I think the retailers need to really spell out what you get extra by using a Jersey service. I think that the local shops also, as someone else did mention, need to have an internet presence so that it's easier when you're busy to use things. You can buy something online from Jersey, and they can add an extra thing about delivery time. They can tailor it to your needs perhaps a bit more, but they definitely, more of the local retailers need to have an internet presence so that when you're busy at work or when you're really tired at night, you can still buy something online from a local shop, and that isn't going on enough. And the other thing is that the tax status really does need to be reviewed, that Amazon needs to be paying a reasonable amount to make it more equitable with local businesses. Thank you.
Next question, please. This gentleman at the back here, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just really like to know what each of the candidates' view is regarding the constables being in the States. I know a couple of people have mentioned that already, but I'd like to hear the views of all the candidates with a simple yes or no, please.
Me.
Please.
Okay.
We'll start in the centre this time, working that way.
All right,
and to the
okay.
far end.
Okay, well, I don't think the constables should stay in the States. I think it's unfair for St Helier, who have over 25,000 residents, and the smaller parishes having one constable like St Mary's. The constables tend to block vote against the town constable, and town people end up subsidising the country parishes, particularly on the rates issue. So no, they should go.
When this was discussed in the States the last time, I supported the option A campaign. In fact, I think the voting in St Helier was 2-1 for the constables to actually leave the States. And if you drew a line through Jersey, north of the line it was for the constables to remain. South of the line, St Saviour, St Clements, St Brelard and St Helier were overwhelmingly in favour of the constables to go. So I believe the constables should actually leave the States.
I was a great supporter of option B during the referendum. The reason for that was that we need change. And if you want to get change through a parliament like the States of Jersey, you need people to vote on it. And if the constables stayed in the States during that option, they would have voted on it and we would have had change. We would have had super constituencies, we would have had a more democratic system. The next phase would have been then to revolve it a bit more. And that would probably, I would have liked to see us move to option A. But governments and parliaments, they work in transition. If you change everything overnight, I don't think you have a good parliament. You don't have stability. And that's why I was supporting option B. It was a transitional arrangement, so eventually, yes, we can move to potentially option A, which was super constituencies and no constables in the States. However, on knocking on doors, and I've been to several thousand now, a lot of people have said to me, what about the senators? Why haven't we got an Isle of Wight mandate? So I think there's a whole big debate here still to be had. And I'd like to take a proposition to the States to have that debate and decide properly what's going to be best for Jersey. Jersey is slightly unique, so why not have a unique system? It's not going to be completely equitable, but it still can be unique and it can still function. Thank you.
I can understand Andrew's difficulty in answering that question because in fact he favours option B, which is keeping the constables, and wants the referendum decision brought back to the States to say that's what we have to do. Now, there's no doubt about it that option A was called for removing the constables of the States. And I spent quite a few evenings speaking at public meetings against the constables, who were all on the platform. And the arguments they came up with were always what good blokes they were, how they loved their parish, how they loved giving out dog licences and gun licences, and it was such a lovely job to do. And they really did love going to the old people's homes on golden weddings and giving out a cake. Now, I don't want to be too demeaning about constables, but the attitude they adopt, that they're the chosen people and the only one with any intelligence and contact with their constituents, is absolute rubbish. They also argued, and continue to argue, that it would lead to the breakdown of the honorary system. With the greatest of respect, I put the question to them, give us one example of how that could happen. And they couldn't come up with one. Because the fact of the matter is, the honorary system is a pyramid. And it has at its base the honorary police, and it goes all the way through the procureurs, the bien public, the parish assembly. It's a perfect form of democracy. And the constable is the head of it. And it's a very valuable thing to have. which is the parish assembly, because they control the constable. He can't spend anything unless the parish assembly agrees. To suggest that that will fall apart and be blown to smithereens because the constable goes to sit in the state is absolute arrant nonsense. And worse than that, no, I heard the bell, but he said, I'll give you 15 seconds. But worse than that, the Venice Commission into small communities said you must have electorates of the same size to be a fair and equitable society. And it's as simple as that.
I won't pussyfoot around on this particular issue. My personal preference is I would like to see this constable stay in the Assembly. That is my personal preference. Obviously, if I get elected by the members of the district and they say in the referendum they want to see the constables out, then that's their public decision and I'll have to follow it. But personally, I would like to see the constables staying.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, I wanted to keep the island-wide mandate. I felt that was important at the time. I do value the wisdom and stability of the constables, but I did vote for option A when it came to the states, because that's what you in St Helier 3 and 4 wanted by a 2-to-1 majority, as Jackie has said. And I will vote the same way with the outcome of this referendum.
Now, I've been consistent for the whole time I've been in the States, and I believe that the constables should not be in the States as an automatic right. And I've even referred to it in my election manifesto here. I believe the election system is flawed. St Helier has a much higher population and less representatives than the country parishes. I can also say, in my view, and this won't endear me to the constables, but I don't think I'm very close to them anyway, and that is the fact that, to be perfectly frank, they are the biggest obstacle to change in this island. The constables, as a whole, if you look at the voting record, you'll find 11 out of 12 constables regularly vote against proposals for the benefit of St Helier or for the benefit of many islanders. They are an ultra-conservative group with a small c and are resistant to change. And I'm afraid to say it, until we actually do get some change, and by that I mean directly elect the constables so that those who want to be in the States can stand for the States and be elected like everybody else, and those who want to remain in the parish and run the excellent parish system, as Ted has mentioned, then we will get nowhere. So I would urge you in the referendum, please vote no for the constable's automatic right to be in the States. Thank you.
No, there shouldn't be in the States. It's an automatic right. Reform Jersey is also supporting the No campaign, and as a member of Reform Jersey, so am I. The constables vote en bloc. They are very, very conservative. They do fantastic work in the parishes, you know, such as the role of the procurer. They're on the roads committees, whatnot. They do parish work. They should stay in the parishes. At the moment, they are doing the role of constable in the parish, plus the role of a deputy. Something has to give. You can't fulfil those two roles completely and fully. Disproportionate representation, it's just a huge issue. Our constable in St Helier represents 33,000 people. The constable in St Mary represents 1,500. So if we can get the constables out of the States, it's absolutely the first step towards states reform, which we need. If we had proportional representation in St Helier, we would have 17 representatives. At the moment, we have 11.
I was supporting option B. That I do agree that the constable should stay in the States, but they do a lot of help. They do help us with the PHQ, the police headquarters, with any situations that if the police can't get there, at least the parish. But I believe that should stay in their parish. I believe that they're doing a job in their parish, good job in their parish. They should stay in their parish, and I'll vote for option no.
Thank you for your question. Yes, you know how I stand on it. I don't think the constables should have an automatic right to be in the States. They're not elected by us. 11 out of the 12 weren't elected. So we're going to have 11 people running our island who we didn't elect. No, no, no. That's my answer.
This gentleman here with the rosettes on. Gentleman in the front.
That's you, darling.
If your fairy godmother appeared to you the day after the election and gave you one wish that would make life better for the St Helier residents of 3 and 4, what would it be?
I will start at the far end, please.
Oh, thank you for that thing. My wish, and I've always the key thing is affordable housing for our young and future generations. I've been harping on about that since I was elected. Thankfully, we've just heard the JCG has finally been passed. There's going to be, I think it's 90 units of affordable housing on there. We've got 800 people over on the waiting list. We've got to get that down. The social aspects that has led to people not having their own homes is terrible. I've represented many constituents, some of them horrendous and very emotional situations, which I won't go into, but we need to deliver proper housing. That's my key aim. Thank you.
Possibly I'm greedy because it isn't just one thing. They're all interrelated. I think that I'd like to see economic recovery and a fair tax system so that everybody shares in the prosperity of this island rather than the few. And that would enable us for people to get on the property ladder and to proceed. So it isn't any one thing. There's so many things wrapped up together, but I want a fairer, more equitable society and for the benefit of everybody. Thank you.
As with Mike, it's quite difficult to pick one thing. I think proportional representation for St Helier is really, really very important. The country parishes are so overrepresented in the states that matters that affect St Helier are totally run roughshod over. We seem to get the poor end of the deal for everything because we are so poorly represented in the states. If we had our 17 members, as we should do, then I'm sure that life would be better for all residents as we would have the fair deal.
Because of my love of the island, I believe in that tourism is one of the things that I truly love to try and see get better in Jersey. It's been neglected for a long time, and I feel as that they should bring a balance to tourism and finance. They should bring them together. They can work together. We can have equal ways of working and getting things better done. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think my one wish would be care in the community, looking out for others, making sure that people are just, okay. I think there's a lot of greed, a lot of rushing and a lot of tearing in Jersey. There's a lot of pushing and shoving. And sometimes you just need to stop quietly, think about what we've got in this island. It's a fantastic place to live. Stop knocking it.
Yeah. Well, if I had one wish, it's difficult to choose. I think I would be able to improve education for all, to give people the skills, to empower them for life. Then people would be able to get better jobs. We'd need to stop importing so many people. They would also, I think, education in a broader way about mental health, about self-confidence, and about personal values as well. So education.
Our scrutiny panel produced a report a few months ago into the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, and that report was pretty damning with regard to the service provided to children and young people at the present time. So my wish would be that a brand new mental health facility would be delivered not only for children but for adults as well, preferably on the Overdale Hospital site. Thank you.
My wish has got to be on reform. The state's got to listen, and the state's got to implement reform. It must be independent. We should get perhaps a Royal Commission to do it. They can't do it themselves, and it needs to be done. And I would wish that they would just get on with it and reform it. I've sat through many debates on reform, and I don't want to sit through too many more. I would like, if I get elected, to bring a proposition for reform and get on and do it. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to be the bailiff of Jersey, actually. And the governor. And the reason I'd like to be the bailiff of Jersey is the first advantage I would get is I would get a salary of £6,000 a week. I don't know if you're aware of it, that's what our bailiff earns. Who is worth £6,000 a week? Barack Obama isn't.
The England manager is.
The England manager is, yeah. Footballers are.
Yeah, David Beckham is.
So that's the first thing. What a lovely salary I'd get. The second reason I'd want to be bailiff is I could vet all Mike Higgins' questions. I could rule them out of order whenever I wanted to. I could stop Jackie asking questions in the States that embarrass everybody. And as far as Richard is concerned, I could actually stop him mixing with the ladies in the back of the States Assembly when he's supposed to be debating things. But to be serious, I would also like to be the governor, because the governor gets a salary. He gets £1 million a year for his household. He gets a chauffeur, he gets 4 gardeners, and he gets one of the most beautiful homes in Jersey. Oh boy, I wish I could do that.
Ted's taken all the good jobs, so I won't be able to choose any of those. I think for me, it's safety-wise. I think I would do something to improve road safety in St Helier. If your question's what could improve the lives of people living there, then it's stop the dangerous driving, stop the people who are risking their lives just crossing the streets at St Helier, clamp down on speeding, clamp down on dangerous driving, because that will make a practical difference and it will save lives.
I will take 2 more questions. Yes, this young lady in green.
Turquoise. Young lady, she likes that. She's a lollipop lady.
Hello, I'd like to ask all the candidates, what is your link to First Tower? Are you in a community association in either District 3 or 4? And if not, why not? If you want to represent us now.
I'll ask Jackie Hilton to start, please.
I guess my link to First Tower was through the First Tower Community Association when it was first set up many years ago, about 12, 14 years ago. Well, in fact, around the time I think that I actually entered the States in 2002. So that is my link. I was heavily involved in the youth club and developing the youth club for a long period of time. So that's my link to the First Tower Community Association. Thank you.
Andrew Lewis, please.
I'm a ratepayer. I've been a ratepayer for 25 years in this district. I have worked in other districts, other parishes, and done an awful lot of community work. And I would love to engage with this community and do the same. And the thing I'd really like to do, and I've done it elsewhere, is introduce a community trust. So we can raise money from ways that we can't currently as a parish or as a district, and we can get people to give that money to us, they can get tax back on it, and we can use that money to fund things the parish can't actually fund and can't get access to those charitable funds. I've done it elsewhere, I'd like to do it in this district, and we can build playgrounds, we can build skate parks if we want them, we can build more bus shelters, all sorts of things that the parish doesn't currently do, hasn't got the funds to do. And that's what I would do if I got elected in this district. Thank you.
Yes, one of the questions I've asked myself when I became the chairman of the First Hour Community Association was why we were having great difficulty in getting people to come and help us. And I look around at the table and I see a number of people who actually have not the slightest connection with this district or number 3 or number 4 at all. And I don't mean by residency, I mean by working for the community. Now, I believe unless you work for the community and you know and understand what's going on in that community, it's almost impossible to represent it. And although there's an elephant in the room about Andrew, because he lives in St John, and that's a hell of a long way from this district, and I find it remarkable that he says that he's a ratepayer. Of course he is. He's got a business in St Helier. That's not the same as being part of the community. And I've got a very strong view about this. Sorry, with the greatest... With the greatest respect, I'm stating a fact.
No, you're not.
And I'm going to continue stating the fact. The position is always, in my view, that although Andrew Green didn't live in this district, he was born and brought up in this district. His family lived in this district, and he was a long-time member of the community association. All I'm saying is, unless you've done that kind of work in the community in which you represent, I believe it's very hard for you to understand it.
As far as my connection to First Tower goes, unfortunately I wasn't brought up around here. My father did go to school at First Tower School, as did many other members of my family. I have lived in the district all of my life, and as have 5 generations of my family going back, living within the same 2 streets. I've already said in my opening speech, I think the work that Ted and the Community Association have done is fantastic, and it's an example and something I've wanted to do for a long time, inspired by the people who live on my street and my family, is to take the community association that you have in First Tower and Lepukale and build something for the people living around Cheapside and Gloucester Street, because there's nothing for the children around there, there's nothing to bring the community together, and they sorely need the sense of community and the strength that you have here in First Tower.
Richard?
Thank you, Judy. I, since elected, have put my heart and soul into Districts 3 and 4. You can see on my manifesto the different clubs and associations I've been involved with. I love the district, I live and breathe it, and a lot of that is down to supporting the community events, and I know Judy and her friends at Pomdor Farm have charity events. It's important that we as deputies, and I think you've been pretty well supported in doing that. As far as further afield, I went to see the co-op workers the other day at Belazan just to get their understanding of the situation with the warehouse down there. There's lots of issues. This is a beautiful valley you've got here. It's starting to look a lot better now, and we need to improve that all the time for the whole community around here, because I think long term, now we've had a commitment from TTS to put the recycling centre down at La Collette, which was fearful for a time because we were going to get a lot of vehicles coming up and down Belazan Valley again. But I think you know, things are looking positive, but we've got to keep on top of it. Thank you.
I've lived actually in the First Tower area for 37 years. I live on St Albans Road. I brought my family up there, and I feel very close to this area. When I was elected into the States, I became the chairman of the First Tower Community Centre before Ted was. And I also was involved with fighting for better housing at Palm Farm, and also for getting better youth facilities here. And in fact, through my efforts initially, that we got the extra additional rooms in the Sun building, and I'm still negotiating with States departments to try and remove the 2 departments that are still in the building, so that we can free it up to make it a much bigger and better community centre. Thank you.
I've lived in St Helier for 10 years, but I'm afraid I don't have any particular links to First Tower. I have knocked on hundreds, possibly thousands of doors in St Helier 3 and 4, and I've listened to people's concerns. They're generally the same concerns over and over again, you know, as are with most of the residents of St Helier. As with any job, you have to start somewhere. And in my case, you know, I've got youth on my side. I am one of the youngest people on this panel. I've worked 45, 50-hour weeks. My role as a recruitment manager has given me a particularly special insight into what is happening in Jersey. I speak to people for about half an hour, on average 3 brand new people every week. And over a period of 5 years, that's an awful lot of people. And I speak to them in a confidential room, in a confidential manner, about how tough they find living in Jersey is. How they, you know, like I said before, you know, I've had a grown man cry on my shoulder before because he was on a 0-hour contract, and he couldn't afford to pay his rent that week, and he was desperately asking me to find him another job, and I couldn't help him. He couldn't go to income support for any help because there tends to be about a 3-week delay, and so he didn't have any money right there and then. Similarly, you know, it's plenty of mothers I've seen who really want to get back to work. They can't afford the childcare. I met a couple last night, and they told me that they had 2 toddlers, and they paid £28,000 in childcare fees last year, that's one person's entire salary. So this is something I'm very passionate about. Like I said, you know, I've knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors. I've met lots and lots of people in this district, and I'm intending to work very hard for you.
I fully support the First Tower Community Centre. I would like to be able to help out with charities, and there's one thing that I've lived in St Helier for 10, 15 years now. I've spoken to people who have been out of work for a very long time, for almost 3 to 4 years. I've spoken to someone who is close to my age. I'm 50, he's somewhere around about 45, somewhere around there. And it's very hard for him to find work. It's just having to go out there and talk to somebody, talk to the people and let them reassure them that we can find work for them, even if they've been on a course, or even if they're on the job schemes. A lot of people feel as if it doesn't work for them. It's not. A lot of industries out there who want people. They're not looking at people who are over the age of 40. I think I think they should do something about that. Thank you.
I do live in this district, but I was told when I was thinking about standing as a deputy, why don't you try 1 and 2? They're wide open. I don't live in 1 and 2, I live in 3 and 4. I can't represent people that I don't know and I don't live round. My link with First Tower is the only one I've got, and Judy knows about it. They were having a lot of problems with the school crossing, and Judy, and I've forgotten your friend's name, Judy, forgive me, Liz, they were having a lot of problems as they were going out into the road. Cars were going round past them. My colleague and I stood in the street for 3 or 4 mornings at 8 o'clock. The motorists slowed right down when they saw the honorary police in full uniform, and the girls were safe for those few days. I know it needs to come back, Judy, and I've got my mind. And today I looked, and you haven't got a zebra crossing there. Now, I didn't realise that. You've only got to keep clear. So First Tower does need a little pedestrian crossing. It will highlight it. And also with the Belisha beacon, not a traffic light one, because that takes too long, but just to make people aware that, because you seem to be invisible, although you're all in yellows. So I think safety in this community would be a priority for me, because there's hundreds of kids crossing that road every day, and you do a fantastic job. Well done.
Well, my daughter has recently finished the school. I've come here for 8 years, from the nursery right through the school. I helped out, as many parents do, with the trips, with the lunch clubs, with after-school activities. Behind the scenes, many of the parents would often ask me things to help out with the forms. At very meetings in this room, parents ask me can you ask them what the multi-level maths is all about? You're a teacher, you know how to talk to them. I've been a representative, not formally, but informally, behind the scenes for many parents in this community. And as any of you know me, people, when they had times in trouble, have often come and I've supported people behind the scenes, to the youth service, to the NSPCC, to the various services that I know about through being a teacher myself. Thank you.
The final question, could I have one, please? Gentleman at the very back.
That's all I do here. Recently, our ex-treasurer was attending a meeting. I'm not quite sure which one it was, just 3 or 4 days now. But he was reported as assuring the audience, a question came up with regard to the green paper on property tax. And he was quoted as assuring the audience that no new property tax was being proposed, but that changes were being explored to make property tax fairer and more competitive. Can somebody not hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear you over here.
We can't hear you.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Could you repeat it, please, sir, so that it can be recorded? And give us the question.
I'll repeat it. Yes, I don't need the beginning. The ex-treasurer of the States was attending a meeting recently when the question of State's green paper on property tax arose. The question arose, and he was quoted as assuring the audience that no new property tax was being proposed, but that changes were being explored to make property tax fairer and more competitive. Now, it's a lovely way of expressing it. I don't understand how nothing is happening if this is explored. But the point I would like to make, really, is that I understand that one of the things which may emerge from this is that tenants will be asked to pay much more in terms of tax. I wonder what the candidates thought about that, and if it did arise that tenants were supposed to be paying more money, which way would they go?
Mr. Lewis, please.
I think, so you're probably referring to the current Treasury Minister made a number of statements about this recently. What he's done is he's published well, he calls it a consultation paper, but to me it reads like a proposal. And that's quite scary. And there's lots of things in that paper, and I would suggest you read it. If you go on my Facebook page, you'll find a link to it. It's quite scary, and what he's trying to do is gather more tax. Now, the one you're particularly referring to, I think actually is a review of the rates, so occupiers' rates and foncier rates. And he's trying to centralise everything into one rateable value, so the central government gets more money from rates. It is akin to a poll tax, and it's not where we want to go. So I would urge you all to read the paper. It's been they've tried to bury it a little bit. He's calling it a consultation paper. It reads like a proposal. Read it and do feedback on it, because he's calling it a consultation, and tell him and his department what you really think. Because if you don't, it may just slip in through the back door. And if I get in the States, I'll make sure that doesn't happen. And there's other things in that paper that are also scary from an investment point of view. And it may restrict investment in Jersey, which we rely on heavily in terms of property investment as well. For those of you that understand that, you'll understand what I mean. It's quite scary. Read it and consult and feedback what he said in that document to him and his staff, and you may make a difference. That's what consultation's about. Thank you.
I agree with Andrew on that point. I think it's really important that you do actually feed back in this consultation. It is a green paper, and the Treasury Minister is on record saying it is a consultation exercise. The only way, if this is developed into a white paper and comes to the States, the only way it's going to be agreed is if States members agree with it. So it's important that you lobby your States members if it does come back. Personally, I have a real difficulty with Middle Jersey being taxed on the homes that they're actually living in. One of the examples I'd heard of was that somebody in a 3-bedroomed house could end up having to pay something like £2,500 a year. I don't know whether that's correct, but to me that was quite alarming, because there are a lot of elderly people who've worked hard all their lives, who are on a low fixed income, i.e. only maybe a state's pension, who would find that extremely difficult indeed to pay out that sort of money. So I wouldn't support the method that's being put forward. I just think it's wrong. I understand why the Treasury Minister is looking at different ways of raising tax, and there was an issue over UK companies who don't pay tax locally. And I think the whole point, or part of the point of the consultation exercise, was to try and find ways that he could hit those UK companies in Jersey so they were paying more. I haven't got a problem with that, but I do have a problem with domestic homeowners being charged even more. Thank you.
The so-called poll tax in England, where individuals were going to be taxed, was Mrs Thatcher's downfall. We don't want to move from that sort of the taxation on homes, their rateable value, to taxation on individuals. I think the main thing that I have been concerned about is that the St Helier Constable has not been able to get the states to pay rates on their buildings in St Helier, and the St Helier ratepayers are subsidising all the people from the other parishes every time they come in and use St Helier, so that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. I've not read the paper that Andrew is talking about, but obviously we may not have that Treasury Minister the next government. We can only hope, and in that case the paper will be buried with everything else. I don't believe anybody should be paying more tax on their property. They're already paying the rates, you know, everything. If you look at social housing, people do get their homes painted, they do get the windows changed when they fall out. But if you own your own property, however small or however large, you are responsible for that. And another tax on top of that is just going to cripple Middle Jersey, who are the main ones putting the money in the pot. So I don't believe we should have a property tax, but I do believe we should have an island-wide rate for rates, because I do feel that people do use St Helier, and St Helier clean up after all of the people that go back to their parishes in their nice little semis, and we're left here with all the rubbish overnight. So St Helier are picking up the bill for all those people that use our parish day in, day out, our car parks and everything else. So an island-wide rate would be fairer. And yes, they should be paying rates on their buildings, because that would bring a lot of money into the island. Thank you.
Being new to all this, constant safe patient, I haven't actually read that yet. I'm just looking at it, it just frightened me as well. So I wouldn't know what else to say about it. Sorry, thank you.
The property tax, it is still at consultation level, so nothing's set in stone yet, thankfully. There are good points to it. It's going to stop abusive interest to buy rentals, as in that landlords will borrow money against one of their companies and then put in a tax relief claim at a fake overinflated interest rate. That's going to stop with the property tax. There's also going to be the introduction of windfall tax. So when a piece of land gets converted from agricultural use to residential use, there will be a one-off payment. So that is a way of raising some tax. However, it's going to end parish control. It's also going to affect tenants most badly. So people, again, who can't afford to buy their own houses, taking pennies and pounds out of pockets and purses for people who absolutely cannot afford it. I read something quite interesting the other day. In 2011, a report was produced by advisors on how we can raise further tax in Jersey. There were 4 options. There was GST, there was property tax, and then there was raising the social security cap and taxing high earners. We've had GST affecting everybody. It's put people into poverty trap who they couldn't afford it. You know, it's on essential items. Absolutely, that should not have happened. And now we are looking at a property tax. Where is the introduction of further higher tax rates for higher earner? Where is the removal of the cap on social security? We have a government that protects our wealthy, evidently. This report was produced in 2011. It's 2014 now, and what we're seeing is the introduction of 2 of those elements, but we're not touching the other 2 that are going to affect the wealthy. We're just looking at affecting the poor.
Actually, I happen to agree with a lot of what Laura's just said. You must understand, again, why are they promoting this policy? Mainly because they've been bankrupting the island through the 0-10 policy. 0-10 means that companies pay 0 tax, 10% for banks, 20% for utilities. But local companies don't pay the tax either. It isn't just UK companies. Local companies no longer do. They brought in a measure called deemed distribution, where they were going to try and claw back some of the money. But that was not compatible with the EU and OECD rules. And so it failed. They had to drop that to find themselves compatible. So that means they've got a black hole in the finances. Revenue isn't there. The property tax isn't the way of dealing with it, except for the fact of the certainly the developers who you can own a piece of land and suddenly overnight you're a multi-millionaire because you've sold that land. Some of that money should come back into the island and for the benefit of the island, not just for the individuals, because of happenstance they happen to own that land. So I do think our tax system is unfair. We need to be looking at a much more equitable system, but the property tax in terms of individual sort of tenancies and landowners, I think is not necessarily the correct way of doing it. But let's deal with some of these abuses that Laura did mention. Thank you.
I actually agree very much with the comments made by Andrew Lewis. I actually don't think this should have come forward as a green paper. It should have been a discussion document to start with. You know, they're taking the easy option. I get the feeling that the Treasury Minister seems to be backtracking on it at the moment. Now, whether it's because of election time, don't tell me. But that seems to be the situation. But it's easy just to add more taxes on the ordinary people. What we should be doing is looking at efficiency savings. And I've been involved in some reports, integrated care records program at the hospital. £12 million was spent of taxpayers' money there. They're not fit for purpose. They're going to ask for another £12 million in the next few years. Now, that should have been done with the original £12 million. We're going to have to find £12 million. Another report, £200,000 grant to that fantasy film company. I was the one that actually insisted on that being investigated. We'll never see that. It's disgusting. We've got to look at efficiency savings like this before taxing people any further. Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to read the Green Paper like some of the others up here, and obviously being a lawyer, I distrust accountants anyway, and I understand it was a panel of accountants who put it together from PwC. Your particular question was how it would affect renters, and being someone who rents myself and who understands the pressure that puts on people, especially if they're paying utilities and they're trying to put money aside to get on the property ladder, I am personally horrified by the idea of people renting being charged more as well. I certainly dislike the idea of centralising a property tax. I think that the parish knows best where money should be spent in the parish, and I also agree with what Mary has said, that the state should be paying rates on their parish buildings as well. But my overall feeling is definitely not. It's another tax, and I wouldn't support it myself.
Yes, one of the things that our Treasurer actually said was that he gave an assurance that he wouldn't do anything about this until sometime in the future. He meant after the election, of course, because we all know that the man's an unmitigated liar. He told the people of Jersey before the last election that he would give a categoric assurance he would not put up GST. 2 weeks after the election, he put GST by 2%. Now, if you believe what he says, you believe in the tooth fairy. And the situation is, we have a Treasury Minister who uses spin all the time, never answers direct questions, and cannot face the fact that he's been in charge of an economy that has gone down for the last 5 years. And the people of Jersey have to understand that he is an unmitigated disaster. And in my view, I hope that in the senatorial elections, somebody ties him up and takes him to Jetu and leaves him there.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for their presentations this evening, and I wish them all well. But none of this could happen without you good people all being here. I'd like to thank one and every one of you for coming this evening and making this Hustings worthwhile. It was far more lively than when I chaired in the Northern Parish 10 days ago with the senators.